Okay, and we're live.
Holy guacamole.
Okay, so I think we are live. I'm just gonna quickly check on my channel and make sure that it's actually gone up because I think YouTube has a bit of a delay. Okay, we're on.
Oh my
Hi. Success. Okay, so we've got a few people here already, so that's super exciting. I guess we should obviously start by introducing the fact that this is the first ever Dark Academics Book Club live show, which is super exciting. So thanks for everyone who's joined us. I think we're going to get started just by introducing everyone, just because you might not know who all of us are. So seeing as we're on my channel, I'll just quickly get started. Obviously, I'm Kira. You're already on my channel, so you might know that already. My sort of favorite types of books are really kind of anything, if that makes sense, but usually ones that have a little bit more darkness in there, hence the Dark Academics Book Club. And I guess a couple of my favorite books would be Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, and also a more recent favorite is Normal People by Sally Rooney.
Yay! I'll go next. I'm Carolyn, and my favorite type of books are classics usually. I am a big fan of classics. Some of my favorites are Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy and Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. But really, every time I read a classic, it becomes a new favorite. So I am definitely just classics all around are my favorites. So yeah, and I also love like historical fiction and literary fiction. So
Yes. Okay, I'll go next. I'm Emma. Oh gosh, what do I love? Just anything dark, like obviously the Gothic, dark academia, but yeah, classics too, obviously, like Carolyn said. Basically just anything spooky, I'm there. Magical realism, obviously, is also love it. Also a little disclaimer, if like my glasses look so weird, it's because I've equipped them with very, very high-tech Scotch tape for my concussion. That would be that. But yeah, just everything really. So yeah.
Well, I'll go next. Hi, I'm Lucy. I'm from the channel Crescent Pages. I think my favourite genre is definitely classics as well, and fantasy. And then my favourite book is Lord of the Rings, which I feel like I'm known for. That's just like my brand. But yeah.
Okay, I'm the last one. I'm Mary from the channel Mary Among Stories. I obviously also love anything that has to do with the whole dark academia aesthetic, anything that's gothic and dark and eerie. My favorite types of books are classics, fantasy, and historical fiction. I would say my favorite books, some of them are The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde, Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. I love the Mistborn trilogy by Brandon Sanderson. And recently, I also fell in love with The Lord of the Rings, maybe thanks to Lucy. Yeah.
Amazing. So that is us. Obviously, if you have any like dark books that you absolutely love, let us know your favorites in the chat, because we'd obviously love to hear them. But on to today's live show. If you're not sort of aware, we're going to be talking about The Silence of the Girls, which is an Iliad retelling, and I think it's one that we're all very, very excited to talk about. So do we want to get started just by sharing our ratings? People can kind of get an idea of what we thought of it.
Yeah, sure.
Cool. So I ended up giving it 4 stars.
And I ended up giving it 5 stars.
Cool. I gave it 4 stars.
I give it 3 stars.
I give it 4 stars as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
So for anyone that kind of hasn't read the book for themselves, we're going to be doing the first bit of the live, doing like spoiler-free chat. So we thought we'd maybe just do a quick like summary of the book, maybe, just for anyone who isn't aware.
Yeah. Okay, I've elected myself to do the summary. So here it is. Okay, basically a very brief little introduction and like a little bit of background information maybe. We have a girl and her name is Briseis, and she basically gives to us like the beginning of kind of European literature. Because she's caught in the middle of the Trojan War, which is obviously the conflict between the Greeks and the Trojans, and is the main focus of Homer's Iliad, written in the 8th century BCE. A lot of Greeks during that time, and a lot of historians still today too, believe that the Trojan War did actually occur in some capacity or another, but much earlier, like around 1200 BC. Why did the Trojan War start? That is kind of a question with a lot of answers, honestly, but I think probably the main one for just the purpose of this book and whatnot is that Paris, a Trojan, was promised by Aphrodite the most beautiful girl in the world because, yeah, so he thinks it's a good idea to abduct Helen of Troy, of Sparta, whoa, because she's just so dang pretty. And then that's how kind of the war begins. The Greeks go to Troy under the guise of kind of retrieving Helen, whatnot. Briseis gets caught in the middle of this when kind of her kingdom is just decimated and destroyed by the Greeks. And she becomes first the prize and slave of Achilles, and then she floats around and becomes the prize of Agamemnon, two of our kind of main chess players in this war, even though they're both on the same side, which is interesting. But from there, the book just follows basically what her life is like in this Greek encampment, especially surrounded by all the other women who are also there with her, kind of what their brutal reality is like, what they do, and I guess more realistically what is done to them. And yeah, so it just follows kind of the last years of the Trojan War, mostly through the perspective of Briseis. But yeah, that is my little summary. How is that?
Amazing.
Great summary.
This is why you did the summary.
Yeah.
So, jumping into some spoiler-free thoughts, what did you all kind of like just think of the book in general? Why kind of did you give the rating that you did?
Should I go first?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So I think that for me, I really loved the way that it was told between each of their perspectives. It felt very cohesive, and just, I know that we were talking a little bit about how whoever has read the Song of Achilles, it reminded them of the Song of Achilles. And I just love the relationship between the three main characters, Briseis, Patroclus, and Achilles. And just the way that Pat Barker wrote it, it was very immersive and easy to kind of fall right into the story, and the emotions that were involved, and just the story in itself was so gripping and emotional, and especially the way that she made it a bit more feminist for Briseis' side. I just thought it was really, really well done. And I loved the plot, I loved the characters, basically like everything about it. I do give 5 stars pretty easily. Some of you guys are way more critical than I am. But yeah.
I felt like the whole time I was reading this book, I was like, I don't know, it was like a 3-star, and then I think I kind of finished it, and like, I'm not mad at myself, but I'm just like, I read this book, in the process of reading it, I think I just was reading it not incorrectly, but not in the way that like I would have liked to have read it. Carolyn, yeah, like everything you said, yeah, super accessible, super easy. But I think I definitely did compare it to other Greek retellings I've read, maybe. But like I think we'll talk about this a bit later, probably all like the marketing that went on with it and whatever, and the whole kind of way it was presented to like public readers and whatnot. But just like on its own, disregarding all of that, it was, I think, really well done, especially when I got to the end and the last 2 pages. And then the last page, I was like, oh my gosh, like this is like what's going on. It's not what it was marketed as being, but you can't, I don't know, I felt like I couldn't take it like that anymore. And just, yeah, it was such a good story. I love that I just focused mainly on Briseis, obviously. Yeah, and just, yeah, so hard-hitting. Obviously, the writing, we'll talk about that later too, but it wasn't something that I was like, oh my gosh, this is like the best writing I've ever read or whatnot, but I think it really fit the story, and it didn't like shy away from anything. It didn't yeah, it didn't shy away from anything that I think a lot of other retellings tend to focus on one thing and just kind of grab onto that, whereas The Silence of the Girls dealt with like almost everything in equal measure and dealt with it very realistically, I want to say, and brutally, obviously, which is the reality of it. So, and yeah, obviously all the facts, you know, were there. So love that. But yeah, 4 stars.
Yeah, so I gave it 3 stars, so I gave the lowest rating. And I think, like you said, we'll talk about it later about the marketing and stuff. So I won't say too much about that now. But yeah, I like the balance between the brutality of it, like it didn't shy away from that, but it also gave the women power, like through like their subversive thoughts and Briseis and the women like being able to find humor in the tragedy that they were living in. I think that like it empowered the women while still showing how horrible it was for them. So I really enjoyed that. But yeah, for the 3 stars, that's more what we'll talk about later. So
yeah, I agree with basically everything you said. I did have my problems with it, but we'll get more into it in the spoiler section. But I think what I want to add is I loved how it also gave the characters a lot of vulnerability. I'm not English. I'm so sorry. I love how it gave them some, showed a more softer side to them, so they were not just warriors and these people fighting in the war. They also had a more vulnerable side to them, and I really loved how the author explored it a little bit, both the women and the men. Yeah, that's basically it. I really loved reading this book, and yeah, I'm not going to say too much right now because I think I have a lot more to say during the spoiler section. So yeah.
Okay, and then for me, I feel like just to give a bit of context, I haven't read the Iliad and I also haven't read the Song of Achilles. So this was kind of my first introduction into anything to do with the Trojan War.
Yeah,
and I just loved how the book dealt with war as a concept because of how you guys have already touched on. It was so brutal and it deals with some really horrific things. And I think although it did have some faults, and that's kind of why I gave it 4 stars rather than 5, I think on the whole, the way that it kind of dealt with these really dark topics without shying away from them was just really good. And again, kind of comes down to the writing style. But yeah, I feel like from the comments, a lot of people are like fans of the writing style.
Yeah.
But then there is definitely like mixed reviews. I've seen like some 3 stars. One person said that they only gave it 2 stars, which is interesting.
Oh, wow.
So definitely get into the like spoilery part and see what everyone thinks. But it seems to be quite a mixed book, I think. So unless anyone has anything else to say in the spoiler-free section, or if anyone in the chat has got any spoiler-free questions, then jump straight into our more in-depth thoughts.
Bob around, wait.
Okay, I think we'll just jump into it, and if anyone has any questions, we can always just jump in. So, who wants to kick it off?
Should we start with the marketing that we wanted to talk about?
Yeah.
Okay. Because even though I did give it 5 stars, I do agree with the girls have their opinions with this, because we were talking about how it was kind of marketed as this feminist retelling of the Trojan War and how it's really going to be about Briseis' story and the women's story. And even though I did love the way that it was done, I did expect there to be more Briseis and less Achilles and less Patroclus and more, not only Briseis, but the other women involved as well. And there were other women, but I think for all of us, we can all agree that we did expect there to be more women involved, more Briseis, and like I said before, less Achilles and Patroclus. With that being said, I did love the way that it was done, but I also feel like it could have been marketed differently because it was this whole like feminist retelling. And it was, but it almost felt like 50-50.
Yeah. Like I don't know if anyone knows who the marketing. I don't know who did the marketing for it. But I think it was kind of presented a little bit like it was like a very different story. It was like a very new kind of really, I don't know, Briseis focused retelling of the Iliad, and then like it's definitely a retelling, obviously, because Briseis gets like she just gets absolutely shoved to the margins of the Iliad and whatnot, even though she's like literally one of the most important parts of the war. But for Silence of the Girls, I think like even without like that marketing campaign, and once again, I have absolutely no idea who the marketers or advertisers was. I think the fact that it was called The Silence of the Girls, that like on its own, I went in and I was like, oh, it's not going to be called The Silence of the Girls because the girls are silent, but like that's literally what it is. But I just didn't take it that way, because obviously when you go into a book, you have all those ideas about it, and especially on the back too, like it literally says like the last little thing is like Briseis has a very different tale to tell. I don't think Pat Barker obviously writes, you know, the synopsis for marketing or whatnot, but that too, combined with the title, I was like, oh, this is going to be like a completely new rendition on the Iliad. But like, I don't like that I thought that way, because after I finished it, like realistically in the Iliad, like having read the Iliad, I'm like, what the heck was I expecting? Like, it's the Iliad. You can't suddenly like reinvent it or add all these new fantastical elements or be like, oh, Briseis went on to have this wonderful life. Here's all the things she did. Like, no, her life heckin' sucked. Like, that's what it was all about. So in terms of like a feminist retelling, like I definitely still think it is, but I don't think it like went out with a goal of being like, I'm gonna like completely reshape this whole story. The point was just about telling the story in the first place, because Briseis didn't like really get her story told, obviously. And I know it kind of shifts back and forth. Like, it's not all from Briseis's point of view. For example, like it does switch to mostly Achilles for especially during the second half of the book as well, I believe, where she's just not in it, and like that's okay, because obviously like the book kind of acknowledges that Briseis' story is Achilles' story, and Briseis even literally says like, oh, I can't walk out of this. Like, she literally can't, because she'll just die. Like, she can't leave. But like I said, I think I just read it wrong when I was reading it at the time that I was reading it, but now I'm just like, okay, like what was I expecting, kind of thing. So that's kind of how I felt about that. But
I think it's interesting about how you were saying that she didn't have her own story and that she was part of Achilles, but I still think that they could have, or the author could have shown that while only having Briseis' perspective. I don't know what you think about that, but they can, or the author could still show that her story is only part of Achilles without having his voice take over the second half of the book. That's why I gave it 3 stars. But
definitely the second half of the book I felt had, because obviously in the Iliad and the later books of the Iliad, like she's just not really there. But I think it was cool. Like, I think we'll talk about this later too, how like Pat Barker kind of put Briseis in certain scenarios of her Iliad retelling where she's not actually there in the Iliad, like if anyone has read it. But I don't know, Mary, what did you think?
I agree with pretty much everything you said, and I think it is interesting, because one of the first problems that I had with the book, like immediately after finishing it, was actually the last line. It says, now my own story can begin. And my first thought was, then what were we doing here? Wasn't this right? Like, wasn't this her story? But then I thought better about it and more, and I was like, no, this isn't really her story, and it cannot be really separated from the rest of the story, right? That's also why we took the men's perspective, but still, I wish it was a bit more balanced, I guess. I don't know. So I remember that being one of my main problems, and I almost gave it 3 stars because of that. But then, I kept thinking about it, and I was like, no, this is a great book anyway, so I need to rate it higher. But
I feel like based on the book objectively and kind of ignoring the title, I absolutely loved
Yeah,
it.
exactly. Yeah,
It's
that's
just comes down to kind of like I feel like obviously Briseis kind of just gets like pushed to one side in the second half, like we've talked about. But then also I feel like having it pluralized in the title and having it being the silence of the girls, I expected more girls to be featured.
yeah, exactly.
Briseis' perspective. I feel like not only did she not really get a full story, but then like no one else really got a look in either.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I don't know, like Helen, for example. Like I was so excited to like see how much Helen was going to be featured in here because I haven't read any Greek retellings or Iliad retellings where Helen is like the main focus. And then she was in it for like what? She was in it for a few chapters, which is fine because that's like Pat Barker's decision. But I'm just saying that I think it would have been cool if she had explored that differently. But I think it's like cool too because it is kind of what happens to Helen in general. It's like no one, like it's just a word. She's not even a person. Like it's just her name. I guess she did focus more on like the other women in the camp, especially towards I think the end of the war, after Troy falls, and then like Hecuba's there and her children and whatnot, and then obviously all that spoiler. We're in the spoilery section. What am I saying? It's fine.
Yeah.
Troy gets destroyed. But who else is there? Yeah, like I would have liked there to have been more of a focus on other women and whatnot.
Yeah.
Other characters.
And like their stories as well, which I know would take forever because the Greek, obviously, there's so many heckin' people. But yeah, I know.
I definitely agree. I feel like at the end when I read that line that Mary spoke about, when it said like now her story can begin, I had that same thought too. I was like, wait, but like wasn't this supposed to be her story?
Exactly.
But like you said, you have that second look at it too, and it's kind of like it's so hard because Patroclus and Achilles kind of like take over as they do in the Iliad, and I feel like it's almost hard not to talk about them as much as she did because they are such a big part of her story.
Exactly.
And it was almost like she was just part of Achilles' story. And so I feel like that's when it gets that confusing part of it's like, well, whose story are we talking about? And are we talking about the women? Are we talking about Achilles? And how are they kind of involved and related to each other? So I feel like trying to, like Kira said, as a whole, as like a story in itself, without the title, without the marketing or the background or anything, it's a great story. I just feel like they could have changed a few things to make it a bit more the way that they presented it.
Yeah. I agree.
See, someone in the chat has said, pop it on the screen, that they saw it as a feminist retelling giving females a voice, but because they're silenced throughout history, they're still silenced. And I feel like it's kind of interesting there because I guess with these retellings, you've kind of got like the balance, I guess, for the author of trying to stay like historically accurate, but then if they're just telling the exact same story, then there's kind of no point. So
exactly.
it's like, should it have done more to give the women more of a voice?
Exactly.
Like I think it's great for people. Like I think it's if you feel like you just don't want to read the Iliad, like this is a good book to read because it does give you the whole, just basically everything that happens in the Iliad with the added bonus of like not pushing Briseis and all the other women to like just the silenced margins to some degree, obviously. But then for people, some people are saying that like, especially about the Song of Achilles, like that they didn't. What is it? You guys didn't know that the Achilles Hector prophecy was a thing. I don't know because like I know Kira, who hasn't read the Song of Achilles?
Yeah, I haven't.
Yeah. Like, did you guys? Was that a thing that you were confused about, or you're like, oh?
I knew about it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't confused.
I've heard about it.
Yeah, exactly. But if like you haven't heard about it, the prophecy, I guess. I don't. Because
it doesn't really do much for explaining the greater context. I think it's very much an in the moment kind of text. Someone else has kind of said that they didn't really think that it explored Briseis's connection with her past life very well. Like she obviously resented what was happening to her, but she didn't necessarily really seem to grieve that much for what she'd lost out on, or not. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I feel like the author could have done that if she didn't have Achilles' perspective.
Yeah, probably.
Like, I feel like with fiction, you can take the liberty to create a voice where there wasn't one. Like the fact that Briseis doesn't have any voice in Iliad. I feel like the book could have made a whole new story for her, but that's like a personal opinion. I don't like how Achilles' perspective was in it. I feel like Briseis could have had so much more.
Yeah.
His perspective wasn't in it.
Yeah, because like the first time it switched, I was like get out of here. Because like we always get Achilles, like everyone.
Yeah, because it doesn't add anything new. So
no,
again,
exactly,
the point,
and I think that's a lot of people's main complaint is that like it didn't feel like something like a wholly original or wholly special. Like I know it doesn't have to, but I think if you do try to like be like, oh, Briseis is a whole different tale to tell, but then you don't really delve into her past life, or like a lot of people don't feel connected to her grief or to her story in the first place, then kind of what's the point? But yeah, I don't know.
Not to make like another Madeline Miller reference, but I feel like we kind of have to. So like the way that we're talking about how you can take fiction and you could kind of, you know, give someone that didn't have a voice, I feel like that's really what Madeline Miller did with Cersei. She gave her an entire backstory, an entire, you know, it's a big novel, and I feel like Cersei in itself is very like a slow burn, and it because she is immortal, it does feel that slow timeline, and I feel like that's a perfect example of like she could take that and give her a complete, well-rounded story, and I feel like that's kind of what I was hoping for with Briseis.
Yeah. I feel like with Cersei, there's no question that she is like 100% the main character.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Her voice, whereas this one was a little bit more.
It was like questionable. Yeah. It was like it makes you think about it or like whatnot.
And I guess again, when you like kind of dig into it, is like, is that a point on how women have been treated?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know.
Yeah.
I would like, I don't know. I'm like Pat Barker. I think you know what you're doing, hopefully. But at least, I would think that because, and then compared to like the Song of Achilles and stuff like that, like I know the book ends with a question. Oh gosh, wait, I'm gonna read it because I don't want to mess it up. It's the very last page where it's like, they won't, like us reading the book won't want to be told about the massacre and all the bad things. And then they're like, how are people going to retell it? That they'll go for something softer. And then she's like, a love story, perhaps. And then she's like, I just hope they managed to work out who the lovers were. So like, that's interesting too, because I'm like, I don't know, because she could be talking about so many different people. I feel like I read that as like, I don't know, because there is a Song of Achilles, but I don't think that's what she's talking about, obviously. I feel like she's just hoping that people don't. I think because if in just like public today, people are like, oh, Helen and Paris, that's such a nice love story. So I feel like that's what she's maybe talking about, or just trying to get at that, like the lovers were literally just these families who were ripped apart, and these women who were like having to see all their families butchered in front of them and then taken off to like grief camps or whatnot. But yeah, what was this tangent on? We were talking about the marketing, I think.
Marketing,
Oh yeah, and someone said in the chat that like it would have been cool if Achilles' perspective had been through his mother. And I feel like that would have been so cool.
Yeah, that would have been amazing.
Very interesting.
Yeah, because like one of like, I feel like, I don't know, I kind of trace it back to like one of the main causes of the Trojan War is like Achilles' mom, Thetis, however you want to say it. There's a prophecy about her that she would give birth to a son who would grow up to be more powerful than all of the gods. So Zeus was like, obviously not. And then marries her off to this old guy. So then she has a son. And then the new prophecy about him is that he can either live to a nice old age and be happy and then die, or die a very young age under the walls of Troy. So yeah, I feel like it's just cool though, because like it's literally the same thing from Briseis to Helen to Achilles' mom to basically everyone. It's just like they're kind of stripped of everything they have and then reinstated with like this new system created by men, gods or not. And then they have to exist as just like this new systematic thing that doesn't even get any say in whatever. But no, yeah, that would have been such a cool choice if it was pulled from his mom.
Yeah, I would have loved that.
It would have been so much
Yeah,
better.
me too.
Because like
Someone
even
write that.
yeah, even the
Yeah.
scenes. I think there are scenes where like Thetis, not catches, but like sees Patroclus and Achilles together, or like she is there, like her presence is there. So I feel like she could tell their story, and it could be kind of in her like we were saying, in her perspective. I think that would be really interesting, and I don't think that's ever been done.
Because she doesn't speak in The Silence of the Girls, I don't think she
I
has
don't
any
think so.
lines. Yeah.
No, she's just kind of there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
We're getting a lot of interesting comments, actually. I'm trying to read some of them. Yeah.
This one kind of
You guys are
summarizes.
gonna have to read them to me.
This one kind of summarizes that last point, I think, about what the book, what we had an issue with, was just that it really identifies that women have like consistently been under the shadow of men, like always. And I feel like it does do that, but then it's just impossible to not hope that there would be a book that kind of challenges that. So
Yeah, exactly.
Summarizes that little bit of our conversation. And then this one as well started off with a really solid idea, but then sort of got caught up in the sort of traditional trajectory where the male voice dominates. So
yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, because I feel like, I don't know, the second second half of the book, when like it focuses on Achilles and Patroclus's story, like if it was really from Briseis's point of view, like she could have kept it from Briseis's point of view and then gone off of Briseis's reaction to what happens to these two lovers. Honestly, let's just call them what they are. But I don't know, maybe she's just like, oh, I really want to tell the story about Achilles and Patroclus, but then like then you can't, like, just
it
don't.
gets a bit confusing. Yeah.
Write another book about them.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Too, but I'm just saying, like,
And I guess
it could be The Silence of the Boys.
Oh my god, yeah.
Another interesting point, kind of taking us in a little bit of a different direction. Cam has just left a comment about how the women we're kind of talking about are all of the sort of higher social class. And I feel like that's definitely something that we had discussed at some point anyway. I seem to remember how even the women that we sort of do get an insight into are still
they're just really,
like significantly, even though they're still treated badly, still significantly more privileged than some of the others.
They're in a better position. Yeah.
And I do feel like it was really interesting. I forgot her friend's name when she was working in like it's the weaving. What are they called?
I can't remember her name.
I forgot her name, but like I love.
Does anyone remember? Here in the comments.
It begins with an I.
Yeah.
But I loved their relationship, and I feel like even the girls like that are mentioned, it could have been explored so much more. And I wanted more from like their relationships, and there are so many women that were introduced, and they all have their own story. And so she could have so easily given us a little piece of what they were going through. So it's not like it wasn't that it couldn't happen.
Yeah.
I just wish that we got that a little bit more.
Yeah.
Me too.
I feel like there were a few scenes at the beginning, but then once it went to Achilles' perspective, it kind of lost impact.
Yes.
And then at the end, it brought them up again, but then it was like, it just feels like she was bringing them back to reinforce the point, but it wasn't consistent.
There we go.
Thank you. Great.
Way more than us.
We're so professional.
But yeah. There's so many opportunities or missed opportunities to explore different like female relationships, and I feel like it kind of just
true.
missed the mark there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, because I think at the end of the book too, when all of the women who were in Troy come out into the camp, or are taken out into the camps, and obviously they're all still highborn, elite, and whatnot from Troy. Literally, you have people mention like Cassandra, who's in one sentence, or Andromache, Hector's wife, and then her only sentence is about her grief for her child who's just been killed and how she's now the prize of Achilles' son. Or even Hecuba, and obviously her daughter gets sacrificed at the end of the book as well. But yeah, they're all just like, I don't know, it was kind of a strange moment because I'm like, okay, you're just like name dropping all these places, all these people, and for people who like don't know, first of all because you haven't introduced them, but also because not everyone has read the Iliad or anything. Like I feel like it kind of would have not been meaningless because obviously there's still women, there's still people, but I'm just like, okay, why are you just like throwing all these things
listing
yeah
little snippets.
But yeah,
Should we all go around and maybe say something that we really loved about it? Because I feel like
guys, I did like this book. I did like it.
We loved it.
I just yes. Carolyn, what did you love about this book?
I am such a sucker for Patroclus. Like he is like I love him so much. And so like I'm not gonna complain about there being a lot of Patroclus. I feel like my issues with it would have been solved if the book was a little bit longer and if there was a little more women and a little less Achilles. Like it just gave us an even balance or a little bit of a mix. I feel like it would have been perfect. But I really loved the way that she kind of dealt with their relationship because Madeline Miller in Song of Achilles also did an incredible job, and that book is another favorite of mine. But I think my favorite part was just like their relationship. I know some people I saw in the chat, some people liked the writing style, some people didn't. For me, I really liked how it was simple but also very impactful. And it wasn't overly flowery at the same time. I loved how it was kind of a nice balance of the brutality. Even like the first line, the second that I read the first line, I was just like,
the first line is amazing.
Right? Should I read it?
Yes.
Great Achilles, brilliant Achilles, shining Achilles, godlike Achilles, how the epithets pile up. We never called him any of those things. We called him the butcher. And I just love that. Like that's, I think, such a great example of what I love about her writing style is that it's so poetic, but not in a corny way, I think. And it's very like to the point as well. So
it is very lyrical in a way, but also very just raw and honest and to the point. I feel like she says a lot in just a few sentences, and I love that.
Oh gosh, what did I like about this book? No, because like I gave it 4 stars, but I'm like, yeah, like obviously the relationship with Achilles and Patroclus, great, super, always love them. I think I was just like, not that I was like, oh, here we go again, because obviously still there's not a lot of that around, even with the Song of Achilles. So that was like, I love seeing that, and obviously Pat Barker didn't fall into like the trap that they're just homies. But at the same time, I don't know. Like I don't know, because like I feel so bad saying it, and like this is not a positive thing, but like I didn't love Perseus. I don't know. Really? And like you don't have to love her, obviously, and like her whole life is just garbage, and she's going through all this horrible stuff. But I don't know. I just didn't really get a lot out of her, like as a character, because like obviously I'm conscious and like I've studied the Iliad, and like yes, all this horrible stuff is happening, and obviously she's going through it, so like what is she gonna do about it? But I don't know, I didn't love Perseus. Right. Oh my gosh, this is supposed to be a positive thing. I like the writing. I like flipped between really loving the writing and really not liking the writing. I think I saw someone, I don't know if it was on here or sorry, that last comment, I'm just like...
Yeah, that's what I was reading. Oh my god.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yes.
Oh my god.
Yes.
What the heck was I saying?
You like the writing, you don't like the
Yeah,
writing.
and I saw someone say that, like, because I know Pat Barker uses a lot of like very modern language that's very jarring and kind of shocking because you're like, oh, this is like 1200 BCE. Why are we saying this?
Yeah.
And like I don't know, like it was jarring and it was like shocking, but yeah. So like I didn't really love the modern. I don't know.
Use of language,
Like it was a choice. Like I think it was a cool choice, but like just very subjectively, I was like. Not, I don't know, I wasn't loving it, but it, like I don't know. Someone said also like her inspiration is kind of a lot of Angela Carter, so
that makes sense.
Makes sense. Yeah, I don't know. What did okay? Someone say more positive things that you like.
I mean, I can say one quote that I really liked.
Yes, let's share quotes. Because I see some people are sharing quotes in the chat too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So I liked how she said. She was saying like the reader might ask, why did you want to marry Achilles when he killed your family and everything like that? And she says, perhaps that's because you've never been a slave. And I thought that was interesting how the author drew attention to like in this situation, Briseis had to grasp onto any semblance of power that she could. And that was through marrying Achilles, like to gain security and safety. And also, I just really liked how, like, the line between resisting and self-preservation, especially at the end when she tries to escape and then she's like, no, I can't do this because she would just die. Like,
that was so
it's,
sad.
yeah, I really like that balance. I think that was probably my favorite thing about the book.
Yeah. And again, I actually really liked the writing style. It seems like it's a bit divisive, but I feel like I liked how like to the point and like just brutal it was, and I feel like by sort of being relatively simple and quite modern and sort of stripping away all of the flowery language that you might get from like some older texts, I feel like it really just sort of pack a punch in sort of highlighting how brutal war and like the treatment of these women could be. And I also think by kind of simplifying it, it's a really great way to sort of make these Greek texts seem a little bit more accessible to people.
Is she coming back to us?
Yeah.
Okay, I did remember something else I really loved.
Yay!
Take it away.
Yeah, like what I was saying, like very early on in the stream, that like Briseis was put in and kind of implicated and got to take some autonomy in certain situations, where in the Iliad she's just not there at all. I think the first one that happens is when the plague gets called down. And then she's there on the beach, like watching Chryses call it down, but then like he stops and goes away, and then like she continues his kind of
I thought that scene was incredible.
I was like, oh, because then it's like she kind of I don't know, it's like it was her plague now, and I was like, that's so cool.
And I think we were all reading this. I don't want to like bring up like current world events.
It was
like,
too real.
It was very like
too
ironic and poetic, and I was like, this is a little too close to home. Oh, she's back!
Hi.
Welcome.
Oh my god!
Welcome back. It's okay.
Okay. So, what
we were talking about
the play.
Okay.
Oh, and just what was I saying? Kind of how Briseis was responsible for Rilke was responsible for it, and she starts yelling at Apollo too. And then like other, I don't know if I'll remember them all, but like other places in the Silence of the Girls where Briseis is there, where she probably, and she wasn't in the Iliad. I'm trying to think if there's any more.
There was a question. It says, did Briseis try to escape back to Troy in the Iliad, or was that just in this book? Yeah, that one.
Just in this book?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I haven't read the Iliad, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, me neither. Yeah.
They wouldn't. I think they wouldn't have even put that in. Like Homer would have been like,
Yeah.
That was cool.
Yeah.
And then I think another part too. I know she's in obviously Achilles' camp, but when Hector is finally that's like another thing I want to talk about, not really related to this, but kind of is just the whole Hector Achilles situation, which kind of like took on this like Dorian Gray-esque thing for me, I think.
Yeah.
But, like, to like pause on that for a second, but like I think she was there helping to prepare Hector's body as well, and seeing Priam literally come into the Greek camp.
Yeah.
No one sees him, and then he's there too, begging for his son back, and then she kind of has to be all not really companionable, but kind of like just witness with Achilles like what he's done to Hector, and prepare the body, and like that was a cool part too, because I don't like, obviously it is the woman's responsibility in the Iliad to clean the bodies and whatnot, but I think that was a part that wasn't really focused on a lot too, which Pat Parker put back in, which was cool.
Yeah, I mean, talking about that, something that I didn't realize was when he's like dragging Hector?
Yeah.
Okay, when he's like dragging Hector's body around, I was so confused when like the next scene was like he was all like fine again. I was like, wait.
Yeah, that was so
like,
cool.
Yeah, it was
I
really
remember
cool.
that.
I just like I was a little confused by that, and then it clicked in my head. I was like, oh, he probably has some kind of like
I thought that
power,
was so well
or
done.
I thought that was really great.
Yeah.
You know, kind of thinking about that metaphorically, it's like as much as he like tries to like solve his problems with violence or in some way, like it's never fully satisfied.
Yeah, and then the part two where like let's just talk about Hector. When he like after he's done dragging him around, and then it's like the last few days, I think, before Priam comes, maybe he starts to see everything he's inflicted on Hector on his own face when he looks in like the mirror or the water, and I was like, that was probably like not my favorite part, because that's weird, but like I just thought that was really well.
It's not weird.
No, not at all.
Yeah. I like how it doesn't romanticize war, like, because it doesn't tell you that there's a right side, because who can be right in this situation? Like, we're talking about a war, so how do you pick a side? Can you really pick a side? Yeah, I really like that approach too. I think Kira is gone.
Oh no. I definitely
sure.
I definitely
Sorry,
agree
Carolyn.
with you. No, that's okay. As I was reading, I kept feeling so conflicted of like, do I want to side with the Trojans? Do I want to side with the Greeks? Having this like back and forth conflict with myself of like, who is right in this situation? And I feel like neither of them are right. I don't know if that would be the correct term to use, but it was just so interesting to kind of take that and think, well, whose side would I be on if I was in this situation, and kind of putting yourself in this story. I think that was really well done, because like you're saying, it doesn't romanticize war.
Exactly.
I just think that aspect was really well done.
I think with the woman in the camps too, it like added another level, because like you hear Briseis talking about like obviously how awful it is to be in the Greek camp and the way she's treated there, but then you hear her and all the other women like worrying about what's going to happen to them if Troy wins and Troy decimates the Greek camp, and they're all going to be taken by Troy, even though technically like they would be in Anatolia, or they would be on the side of like the Trojans, and still worried about how they would be treated by them. So it's kind of just like this back and forth, like kind of equally implicated violence and brutality. So I think that makes it hard to decide too. So that was cool.
I think we have another question somewhere. Yeah, someone said good question, so I'm trying to look for the question.
I'll have a look.
Okay,
let's see.
Is it the one about Hector's body, or is it another one?
I'm not sure.
Did Briseis try? Oh wait, no. Oh, I think it's the. Did Briseis try to escape?
Escaping back to Troy.
Yeah.
Which I think kind of leads on to a different point. So if anyone's got anything else to say about Hector, speak up now.
Oh, I love Hector.
I'll forever hold your peace.
No, but say something.
I feel like Briseis sort of trying to escape back to Troy, but then not deciding to go back. Sort of, in my mind, is kind of like to do with the sort of connection that she starts to develop with her captors, which I feel like we briefly touched on, but I find it quite interesting because kind of like the quote that you shared, Lucy, about how the experience of being a slave kind of causes her to do things that maybe other people wouldn't understand. And I feel like she kind of starts to have a bit of an identity crisis where she doesn't know which side she feels like she should identify with, because being a prisoner of the sort of Trojans and like rather being a Trojan herself and then sort of identifying with them, she wants them to succeed, but then being with the Greeks and kind of under their protection as their slave, she also kind of has an affiliation with them as well. So it's definitely interesting.
Yeah, that's like a bigger problem when she becomes pregnant as well, because like that means.
Oh my gosh, I forgot that even happened. Yeah.
Yeah, because that connects her with Achilles and potentially gives her more protection. But then it also means that she's going to have a child who's half Greek, and then that confuses her loyalties even further.
Yeah, and that child ends up kind of being brought up on the Greek side, and so then it's like, does she by default find herself empathizing more with that side just because of circumstance? It's really interesting, I think.
I feel like Patroclus was like also a big part of her like having those issues, because he's kind of like, I don't know, I'm not gonna say he's like, oh, he's nice to her, but he's like not nasty to her, which is a big improvement. But I think, yeah, like her relationship kind of with Patroclus and then via Patroclus to Achilles as a way of kind of like a medium, essentially, or kind of like to try and understand Achilles through Patroclus is interesting, and that kind of lets her see like not really who Achilles is, but I think a lot of the issues that he's dealing with. Because like Achilles in this book, if like you guys have read it, he's just a big baby. Like there's so many things. He's just he's got some big problems. Like big problems.
And the whole like holding the grudge thing, I was like, just let it go. Like you basically like caused Patroclus's death because you didn't like you made him go because you were a big baby.
Yeah. A big baby.
I can't stand Achilles.
I know. Who else I can't stand is Agamemnon. Like I understood like why he was very proud and he didn't want to, you know, give up his honor or whatever.
It's just so silly.
It's just very very silly, but also like I just like every time Agamemnon was mentioned, I would get like an annoyed face on, and I was like, oh my God, flipping the pages angrily. Yeah.
I think that's a good place to talk about like blame, because like the book starts with a quote about how does the Iliad start, how does Western European literature start. It starts with like Briseis, and it starts with her because people are fighting over her because they've taken everything away from her and then instilled her with all of this value. And values attached to systems that they've created.
Oh my God. Good point.
Love it.
He's not a fish.
Love it.
Oh my God. That was amazing.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. Poor Achilles.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just had to.
Sounds a fish. No, please. Thank you. What was I saying? I can't hear my mom laugh. I think she must be watching this. Hi, Mom.
Hi, Emma's mom.
That's like the biggest cackle I've ever heard. Oh my gosh. Okay.
That's adorable. Okay.
That's so funny.
Yeah, okay. They've just like instilled Briseis with like this new system of values that like they have created themselves. I can still hear her going.
Oh my God.
And yeah, and then they are prey themselves and like punish themselves based on something that they've created and that they've instilled in these women and then these girls.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh my gosh, sorry. Yeah, it's just so silly.
Yeah, and that's
like,
reminding me that's reminding me of like the first quote that she puts in the book, even before the story starts, where it says, you know how your European literature begins, you'd ask? after taking roll at the first class meeting, with a quarrel. All of European literature springs from a fight. And then he picked up his copy of the Iliad and read to the class the opening lines. Divine muse, sing of the ruinous wrath of Achilles. Begin where they first quarreled. Agamemnon, the king of men, and great Achilles. And what are they quarreling about, these two violent, mighty souls? It's as basic as a barroom brawl. They are quarreling over a woman. A girl, really. A girl stolen from her father, a girl abducted in a war. And I think it's just like, even though this is a story of men talking about the Iliad, and it's mainly following the men's stories, I like how she put that in the beginning, because it was because of a woman, it was because of a girl. Why this was started, even though we don't get much of Helen. She is kind of this this veil that we can see but we can't really touch. And
I feel like it also kind of touches on how women are kind of just like pawns in this game that's being played by men, and they don't really have much say in it, and yet they're so sort of integral to what's actually going on.
Yeah, but that's like the whole point. They're just they don't speak, and then they just get words thrown onto them. Oh my gosh, Helen, I think, okay, I like to have this little part with Helen. I think it just, it ties in so well. It says that sometimes Helen would go into the inner room even before I left, and then I'd hear the chattering of the loom, the rattle as the shuttle flew to and fro. There was a legend, it tells you everything really, that whenever Helen cut a thread in her weaving, a man died on the battlefield. She was responsible for every death. I feel like that's just like obviously the same thing almost exactly. It could be written about Briseis, and could be written about Achilles' mom, the fish. Oh my god. And then it goes on that like she doesn't put herself in her tapestry, which was so so cool. And then the part where like years back when Paris actually goes out on the battlefield and he's like, yo, Menelaus, let's throw it down. And then whoever wins can have Helen. It says that both armies gathered to watch, and the battlements were crammed with spectators eager to see the fight, but Helen wasn't there. Nobody had bothered to tell her what was happening. And that's literally just like the whole thing. Like, that's the whole thing. That's it. That's the whole story. But I know.
True.
I haven't read 1,000 Ships. I know, Lucy, you have.
Me neither, but I really want to.
Like, what is that about? I know obviously what it's about, but like, is it mostly Helen or?
No, it's like different perspectives from those of the women, like I can't remember the name, the mother of Andromache. And I'm trying to remember now, I read it ages ago. But like, it doesn't focus on one woman. It's like loads of different voices from like different sides, I think. But I definitely recommend that if you do want like a retelling that is just women. Like it's literally just, there's no men's perspective, I don't think. I think it's probably like the same time frame, like near the end of the Trojan War. I can't remember much about it, but I definitely recommend that.
Yeah, I really want to read that one.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
It's kind of like what we were expecting the Silence of the Girls to be.
Yeah, exactly.
Helen just wasn't, I don't know. I wasn't really expecting her to feature much in there, but like I feel like those were like some of my favorite parts, because Briseis obviously goes to visit Helen, and her relationship with Helen, and then is it Briseis' sister? Yes. And then them was interesting, but like the parts about Helen and her tapestry, and like how she is like writing the war through her weaving, but she doesn't even put herself in the war, and more importantly, she doesn't like put herself in because she doesn't know what side to put herself on. And then Briseis' sister is like, she's waiting till the war ends to know where to put herself. It's by Natalie Haynes, right? The book.
Yes, 1,000 Ships.
1,000 Ships.
Oh my god.
Someone's from Greece.
Oh
wow.
That's cool.
We can put like the book. We should like just make a whole list of the books we talked
about. The books we mentioned, we could talk.
Yeah.
Maybe put
a link everything. Yeah.
yeah, I'll pop that in the description of this once we're
Mhm.
done.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Someone's asking how we met.
Aw.
That's so cute. Oh my god. I love that.
Guys, how did we?
I don't know.
I
You know,
think I met Emma first out of all of you guys because she commented on one of my videos, and then she talked about Lucy, and so then that's how I met Lucy, and then it was like a chain reaction, and then I found
yeah.
each of you guys.
I think I actually met Lucy first because I was
Me
like
too.
subscribed
Me
to
too.
Lucy,
Yeah.
like very early on.
Yeah.
I think we started talking, and then Carolyn and I started talking, and then obviously Karen, Mary.
Yeah.
And then I don't know. I think it was after we did the Dark Academia book tag.
Mm-hmm.
Kira was like, guys, we should all do
Yes.
something together.
Yes.
Yeah. It was amazing.
We did the book tag, and then
Yeah.
and then we made a group chat just to like talk about books with each other,
Yeah,
and we never thought about making a book club. And,
Yeah.
you know, but now we're here.
And then suddenly. Yeah.
It was fate. That's
Yes.
Yeah.
Um,
So, did anyone have any other thoughts?
Or any questions?
Where are we all from?
Oh my god. Well, I'm from Portugal, and it is obvious that my first language is not English. So
You speak your
speak so
English
well.
is
oh,
literally
thank you. Oh my god. Okay, stop. Thank you.
I love it.
Oh.
Okay. Well, I'm from England, specifically like Yorkshire, which is kind of in the north of England.
Yeah, I'm from England as well. I'm a bit further south.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm from New York, specifically Long Island. It's like New York is a state, and then Long Island's like the little tail hanging off of New York.
And I'm from Canada.
Oh my god. Yay.
So
Yeah.
we're all over the place. And someone is from Brazil and had to stop family lunch to have this
Ooh.
live.
Oh, thank you.
Olá, Brasil. Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone said, Mary, your English is amazing.
Oh,
And it
thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Oh. Yeah.
It really is. I feel like it's better than mine.
Definitely not. Oh my god. Yeah.
Oh, someone said got Canada wrong.
Oh, okay.
You don't have a super like exaggerated Canadian
Yeah.
accent.
Yeah.
No.
That's true.
It's the O's. It's the
Yeah.
O's.
Yeah.
Karen said I say sorry wrong.
Yeah. She says sorry, and I say
Sorry.
sorry.
Sorry. Oh my gosh. Yeah, is there anything else you guys like?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, do you guys have anything you guys want us to talk about?
Yeah.
I don't know what else I wrote down.
Ooh, someone from the Philippines. 3 a.m.
Ooh. Oh my god.
Oh my
Really?
gosh.
Oh my god.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
thank you
you.
so much.
That's amazing.
Oh, we got someone
Oh my
from
god.
India.
Oh,
Hi.
Oh my god.
Pakistan.
oh my gosh.
Oh,
that's
hi
amazing.
everyone.
Mexico. Oh my
Oh
goodness.
my god. Oh my god.
You're
I
all
love that.
amazing.
Oh yes.
Ooh, someone else in Portugal.
Hi. Oh my god. Yay.
From Uruguay.
Oh my god, this is amazing. Poland. Oh,
Missouri.
oh my god, I love this. I love this.
Incredible.
Germany, Turkey.
Germany. Yay. Getting to
Oh
watch
my
it
god.
time. Ooh, another person from Germany.
Oh, another person.
Canada.
Birmingham.
Netherlands. Czech Republic. Oh my god, so many places. Love
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
Incredible.
Oh, Croatia.
Australia.
Cancelled.
Oh my
So
god.
worth it.
Oh. Austria is one of my favorite places, by the way.
God.
Indiana.
I just feel like this is exactly why, like, we started this,
Yeah.
and like it was so cool for just the 5 of us to know that we were all like reading the same things, even though we're all from like all over the place, and then now we can share it with all of you guys as well, which is
it's
amazing.
amazing. Yeah. Oh.
Love it.
And I feel like we were talking about how we were doing this at the perfect time because so much is going on, and I feel like this is such a great way to like bring us all together. And
Italy. Yeah, it's amazing.
yeah, that's amazing.
Love it.
I love this.
Oh,
So wholesome.
Yeah, I know. Oh my god. Thank you all. Oh, this is amazing. Okay.
Like, we were all so nervous to do this live show, and yet you guys so much
So
fun.
nervous.
Yeah.
I went
Yeah.
through 10
yeah, like 5 people were gonna show up, and that's it.
Oh.
Oh, you do have bookish friends like us.
Yes, we are all
Yeah.
friends.
We're friends.
Bye.
That's what the book club is all about.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
we are all friends here.
All friends. Yeah.
So obviously we'll be on here for like a little bit longer. So if you've got any more questions, just pop them in the chat now. But do we want to start talking about
The next
month?
Yeah,
Yeah,
just get it out of the way. Yeah.
Carolyn, you want to take it away?
Sure. So we are going to be reading Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo, which I think, like 150 pages in, and I'm really, really liking it so far, which I was going in with pretty low expectations because it's my first Leigh Bardugo, and I'm not really a contemporary reader, or I'm not really, like, because it's her first YA, and I mean adult, and she normally writes YA, so I wasn't really sure how I would feel about it. Anyway, this is my big ramble to say I am enjoying it. And our live show is going to be on the last Saturday of next month, so that will be on the 27th, and it'll be at the same time as this live show, and it will be on my channel. So we will all have the updates and everything on the social media, and we will keep you guys updated. So get ready if you want to join in to read Ninth House, get your copy, and we are all so excited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
There's
think
someone
we've
said they're halfway through. That's amazing.
had a few more questions. Someone
Okay,
has
sure.
asked, what are we all currently reading? So I'm currently reading Call Me By Your Name, which
She did not know that.
Oh my god.
This is news.
So excited.
I am loving it so far. I'm about halfway through, and I'm loving
good.
it. And it's so warm here and like super summery, so it just feels like a perfect book to read at this time.
Oh my god, you have no idea how happy that makes me.
I can see how happy you are. What about you guys?
I said I was reading Ninth House, so that's
Yeah.
yeah. That's my thing.
What am I reading? I'm currently reading After Dark by Murakami.
okay.
I'm oh my gosh, so good. Absolutely in love with it. I'm almost about halfway through that. And then I'm listening to another book on audiobook. It's just called The Vietnam War. It's nonfiction. It's like a 30-hour long audiobook. But yeah, that is I need some that's really heavy.
Okay.
So Murakami's great. But yeah, I'm starting Ninth House very, very soon. So yeah.
I'm reading Jude the Obscure by Thomas Hardy, and that's like intense. Like I've already talked to Carolyn and Mary about this. I've already mentioned it, but because we buddy read Tess of the D'Urbervilles, and
Amazing.
Jude the Obscure is called his most despairing novel, and I now know why. So
Oh my god.
I'm also listening to Peaky Blinders: The Real Story on audiobook.
Oh my gosh, how is that?
Yeah. It's interesting, like it's not as glamorous and aesthetic as the TV show is, obviously.
Nothing is.
Exactly. It glorifies it a bit, but it's interesting, like seeing the reality of it.
Someone just asked, what did Kira say she was reading? I didn't catch the title.
Oh, it was Call Me By Your Name.
Yes, there we go. Someone put it in. Okay. Everybody needs to read it. Okay.
Yeah, I need to.
Oh,
Yeah.
so good.
And what are you reading, Mary?
Yeah, I'm currently reading, I do not want to jinx it, but I think it will become one of my new favorite books.
Ooh,
Um,
A Tale of Two
and-
Cities.
Yeah.
Yeah!
Oh my god.
I knew it.
Swear. Oh god. I mean, Charles Dickens is amazing, girls. I mean,
I know.
it is
Obsessed.
such a beautiful book. I'm loving it so much. But yeah, I do not want to jinx it.
Yes.
So forget what I said. It's awful, actually. It's a horrible book.
Really? Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Yes,
good.
okay,
Read it.
we don't like him.
Oh.
Okay, then interesting question. Someone has said, having now read the book, are we happy that we started off the Dark Academics book club with Silence of the Girls, or would we change it?
I like that we started.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, it was a good choice.
I feel like it's been a very interesting one to talk about,
Yeah. Definitely.
especially because it's not classically, like it's not a dark academia book, but I still think we can sort of pull a lot from it. So
Mhm.
Yeah.
It has a lot to discuss. I think that that's what's the best about darker books is that there is a lot to discuss, like especially if we have different opinions and
Yeah.
that's what I
Definitely.
really
Yeah, I
like.
feel like this book and Ninth House are very controversial, so
Yeah.
they're
Yes.
good books to discuss.
Yeah, I've seen a lot
Yeah.
of mixed reviews. Yeah.
I think someone asked too if any of us had read any other of
Oh,
Leigh
yeah.
Bardugo's works. Yeah.
I haven't. Yeah.
I've read Six of Crows and I did not like it.
Yeah, same.
Ooh.
I read the Shadow and Bone series, which was fine, but I don't, like obviously Ninth House is very different. And I read Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom as well, and like I wasn't like it was just fine. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't. I was like, oh, I love this, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
read
preferred.
Crows and it
Oh,
was
sorry.
just. I was just saying, like, I didn't feel the need to read Crooked Kingdom
Yeah.
afterwards. I just didn't.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
what
I
we
read the Six of Crows duology, but I gave up on the Grisha trilogy. I might try again when the TV show comes out, but
Oh yeah.
I
Dark
didn't
Arts,
like
yeah.
the first one. But
Yeah.
sorry.
And then someone has asked, what are we reading after Ninth House?
Oh god. Oh, shall we tell them?
Oh, good.
So this will be on Emma's channel, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
This
For
will be our
July.
book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is also my birthday month. So
Ah, yay!
Yes. Oh my god. Yes.
wait,
Do
are
you
we
wanna
telling
tell
them?
Yes.
Or are we not telling them?
Yeah, I think we can. I think we can say.
Yeah, because people. Yeah, I think people want to know. Brrr.
Okay, guys. We're reading If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. So there it is.
Again,
Another very dark academic.
yeah. The June information for the one that's going to be on Carolyn's channel is already in the description. I'll also add in the July information. And someone's asked if we have a plan for August. We do not.
Oh, wow.
We're not that organised.
Not yet. Yeah.
We have a big, huge list
Yeah.
that we have all shared, the 5 of us. And so we are just going to pick from that. So we do have a rough idea of the books, the kind of books that we want. If you guys also recommended us to read a book,
Yeah.
we have put it on that list as well. I'm so excited. You guys are all saying yay. And
Yes, I know. Oh my god, I love
Yeah,
it.
a lot of people were asking about it, so we just
That's
thought.
amazing.
Yeah.
Good.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we will let you guys know as soon as we pick out our next book.
Yeah. So we've got June and July sorted. We're not as organized as August yet.
Yeah.
Not yet.
And we are thinking about October being a little
Spooky.
something extra. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, someone has told us to check out These Violent Delights.
Ooh.
Oh, is that the Romeo and
Juliet?
Juliet retell? Oh, jinx. Yeah.
Sounds interesting.
Oh,
I will
interesting.
check it out.
I love anything Shakespeare.
I will check it out, definitely. Yeah.
Oh, I think someone missed us saying the July book. It's in case someone said to name it. So, but like I said, all the information will be in the description down below.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Oh, guys, and our other thing that we
Our
were
other
gonna
thing?
put in the description, our chat.
Oh
Oh,
my
Discord.
God.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, I can say this, right?
Okay, so it's already in the description down below, but just so that we all have a place to talk about the books throughout the month, we also have set up a Discord, which is going to have like just a general chat section where we can all talk about all things dark academia, and then we're also going to have specific sections for each of the monthly picks. So that's been set up. The link is down below, so please do go and join us on there, where we'll be able to talk about Ninth House right throughout June. And of course, then you can add any questions if you want us to be able to get to them right at the beginning of the Ninth House live show, or if you don't think you'll be able to join us live, then you can just ask those questions in the Discord and we'll make sure to answer them, so you can see them in a replay afterwards. So yeah, go join us there.
Someone also asked, has anyone read Things in Jars? And I really want to read Things in
Me
Jars.
too.
I actually did put it on our big list.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's be a possibility. It's by Jess Kidd, I'm pretty sure, is the author. So yes, that is on our list though. But we have
Yay.
not
Okay,
Okay.
cool. I think that might be everything. I think, is that all the questions?
Yeah.
read, so
Oh wow,
just
I
gonna
love
do
that
that.
description. It says These Violent Delights is The Secret History meets Call Me By Your Name.
Oh, released
Okay.
in September. Ooh,
Interesting.
that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
That doesn't make us want to read it. I don't know what will.
Yeah.
And someone said that they're already done with the next book just because I set myself to only read LGBT plus next month, but I still want to be part of this with you
Oh,
guys. That's amazing. Thank you.
that's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you guys for being
Thank
here.
you.
So
Yeah.
proud.
Oh my God, incredible. Yes. Thank you.
I also
Oh my
just wanted to send a big thanks to just anyone, in case you're not able to join us live, but you watch this on replay, who has like
Yeah,
followed
Hi.
Twitter and Instagram, because there's been so much support for this, like more than we ever imagined, and it's just been amazing. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes.
We're all very lucky to have you guys.
Mhm. Definitely. Okay.
On that note, I think that brings this first live show.
Wow.
Three,
You
two,
gotta
one.
slap, guys, you have to slap your hands on your knees and say, well, it's been great.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, someone has a question.
Oh, sorry.
Let's see.
Oh my God. Okay.
Ooh, two more questions.
My eyeball.
Oh my God. There's a very interesting question here.
Yes,
Sorry.
it says,
Go ahead.
What is I can't see.
what do you think happened to Iphis? Is that her name? Iphis? Afterwards.
Iphis.
I honestly have no idea.
I don't know. Yeah. I'm not sure.
And then someone else said,
Yeah, that's the question I was aiming for.
That is such a good question.
Oh my God.
I think we should.
yeah.
I think we should.
Aw, I'm so
think
scared you
I
guys
haven't
won't
read
like
it
it though.
No, I love it. Oh,
I
I
mean-
read it. Yeah, I have read it. It's one of my
It'll be
favorites.
so interesting to talk about, though.
Yeah.
Really?
Like Carolyn kind of hinted at, we are planning something special, spooky, and fun for October.
Yeah.
We'll definitely add that to the list.
Yes.
Someone also said that the Discord link doesn't work. I will check that out as soon as we get off of this call and make sure that there's a new one in there that does work. So don't worry about that. I'll add that in just a moment. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
It was amazing. Yeah.
I will see you guys next month.
Yes.
June, but we'll chat to you on Discord in the
Yeah,
meantime.
definitely. Yeah. Yay.
Amazing. All right.
Thank you guys so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Ciao.